7:02. We have, we'll just go around the table here, introduce our commissioners and any online. We'll start with Randy, please.
Randy Meyer.
Karen from Yak.
Adam Milsis. Erickson. John Tucaro, Kitchener.
Daryl Bjarnason from Canyon.
Roger Curie, Director.
Lon Main Director.
Jerry Ballard, Commissioner.
And in Wade's absence, is obviously I'm the gentleman with charge with chairing the meeting tonight. So, and online, we have online viewers as well. No response? Everybody online? Okay. Nobody online? Okay, I'd call the meeting to order. I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the unceded traditional territory of the Saha Nation and the Yakanini people. Okay, top of the agenda. Has everyone looked over tonight's agenda? Any questions? Anything that anybody needs to add? None? Okay. The document is circulated. Can somebody make that motion, I guess? I don't know if make a motion for that. Adam?
Sure.
Adopt the agenda?
Yep.
Second? Thank you, Karen. All in favor? Yes. Okay, where do we go? Okay, item number, let's see.
You know what, because the minutes.
What is the
Oh, this
minutes?
is it. Yeah, that was the minutes.
Okay, that's all.
That one.
Yep, see the minutes? Sorry about that, folks.
Yeah, now you're on.
And we adopted
For the
the
five.
agenda. Okay, we weren't able to hold or decide not to hold a meeting in March, so we're going to adopt the February minutes. Did everybody have a chance to read the February minutes? Any errors or omissions? None? Well, I don't know if we take a vote on this again, but all in favor of adopting minutes? Yes? Okay. Gary, staff reports. Okay. We have one item of business tonight. It's 5.1, zoning bylaw amendments referral, small scale multi-housing SMUs.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, is anybody speaking this? Nobody online? No?
Give an overview.
Of the, okay. I can just give an overview.
If you don't mind.
Yeah.
Laura, give me an
So,
overview.
And I'm not a planner, but I'll tell you what I know about it. And if there are questions, Dana Hawkins is the planner that prepared the referral package. So I can take the questions back to Dana. But the province, as you already know, probably, they created some new legislation in the fall that's mandating local governments to increase density just to help solve the housing crisis. So this Bill 44, these zoning bylaw amendments that are proposed are to address this Bill 44. And it's the legislation for the small scale multi-unit housing. So in the regional district, it's a bit different than in the municipalities because we don't have the services. And most of the zones in the regional district already have, they're already permitting a secondary suite in homes. So there weren't huge changes, but these bylaw amendments, do add some flexibility. With parcels larger than a hectare, you can now have a secondary, it's called an accessory dwelling. So now you could have your principal family or principal dwelling, and then you could have an accessory dwelling if you're over a hectare in size. Whereas in many of the residential zones prior, you were only allowed to have a secondary suite. So it's just offering a bit more flexibility. You're limited in size. And I don't know if you looked through those changes to what the accessory dwelling is limited to 968 square feet. It could be built as a carriage house or a cottage house. So you just have a bit more flexibility in those residential zones. Under a hectare, you're still limited to a house. a duplex or a suite in your house. So yeah, that's primarily the changes, to modernize some of the wording. And yeah, in the ag zones, there wasn't a huge change. And we can look through it too together if you want to look through the document. In the ag zones, so for area B, the ag zones, you're permitted, it's pretty much the same. The maximum density is 2 dwelling units. And then you can have a farm worker dwelling unit. And there's other stipulations for the farm worker dwelling unit, but those stipulations haven't changed for the farm worker dwelling unit. And then in ag 2, you can have the same thing. Maximum density is 2 dwelling units. And ag 3 is the same thing, 2 dwelling units. Yeah.
Randy and I have managing that.
Oh, you
We were
were-
at the meeting
okay.
last night.
Yeah.
Randy is the chair, as you all know, the chair of the Crescent Valley Ag Commission. So Randy, do you want to summarize a little bit of what you guys thought about last night and?
Yeah, our initial thought was this thing was 100 some pages long and so on, so good luck trying to make sense of all of it. We just picked out the agriculture sections for each of the areas and dealt with them. What I did, I know the residential classification, your R1s, R2s, and whatever else, that is different. And to be honest, I didn't look at that side of it at all. I was not watching the rest. But I got a hold of even a member of the Agricultural Land Commission to see what their take is on these changes, as how it involves, how it affects the agriculture side of stuff. And like I said, they don't even know exactly yet how this is all working out. They're still trying to work through stuff as well. And yet there still seems to be a deadline or a rush, push to get this stamped right through, which we're concerned about in some respects there. So what our bigger concern was, like 2 years ago, 2022, we spent a lot of time and a lot of meetings on getting some stronger restrictions on some of our farm classified land, our land, as far as house sizes and what's, and there again, somewhat on the dwellings, but mostly house sizes and things like that. And so what we came up with last night was, we were concerned that, is this new stuff gonna override what's already, what we already got in place? Like I say, we firmly believe, residential places, there's plenty of place for residences. Keep it off the farmland. Don't whittle away and destroy our farmland. We need that. And so what we did come up with was to, I'm not sure the right word there, sort of re-emphasize to this specifically that the bylaws, that one for each of the areas that we put in, make sure that we only accept this new policy change as long as that other is carried on and not undone. Otherwise, we would say not a chance. It's one that if our agricultural land was going to be sacrificed some more, and that was our big push last night. And so hopefully it did some good. But like I say, the ALC themselves is still trying to get it figured out as to what the government's going to want or going to want to do or undo and so on. So that's sort of the gist of that. Because like I say, there again, we don't want to start having where, you're going to have 2 houses on every lot of farmland, and then all the accessory stuff that goes with it, and the footprint and driveways and everything. There's pretty soon going to be nothing left to farm. And that's our main concern on that. So that's the nutshell of it.
So, the terminology, that you were allowed to, it's not two houses, not two separate structures. It's two
Dwellings.
Two.
dwellings. So it could be, well, they need to be in one building.
So, and some of the ag zones are more restrictive. The ALC does have their policies. If you're over 40 hectares, you can have your
Yeah.
larger house, two larger houses if you're under 40
Yeah.
hectares. And then the ag zones, and I'm not that familiar with the ag zones around here. And, but I know that they are more restrictive than, they have chosen to be more restrictive than those ALC policies. So I know in some zones, and I can't sit here and say what they are, but yeah, you could have your house with the suite, but not necessarily the second house unless it's a farm worker, you know, and you're, you have farm status and yeah. So the RDCK ag zones in A, B, and C, I believe, they're not changing in the way that they are becoming, they're basically staying the same, but you're allowed the density could be 2 units of housing, not necessarily 2 houses, but two units.
Basically, what we were told that what they're allowing is the suites in your farmhouse dwelling, not a separate building, but I guess I like that
Yeah,
part.
2 units. Yeah.
And I don't think even carriage houses are allowed, because again, that's on a separate building.
Yeah, because that would
Whereas on your
be,
regular residential lots, that's acceptable.
So this felt to me like it was kind of an overarching, like, yeah, I noticed residential, I noticed farm, I noticed quarry, I noticed industrial, commercial, every land zone that exists basically looked to need to have the requirement for either a dwelling unit or, if it was over a hectare, the possibility of a separate structure. Is that true? And if so, I guess within the scope and context of the APHC meeting, is it something that we provide response, or is this kind of a pretty much stamped deal at a higher level? I mean, ALC seems to be chasing behind. We seem to be considering, but it seems like it's coming down from a higher level. So is this just comment, or is it actual informing the decision, I guess?
Sure. Well, speaking as the chair, this is the exact forum to do that. This is where, if you have read the document, and you have concerns or questions, that's where you raise them and are prior to us making a recommendation. But Roger would take those concerns to the board and express what they feel were necessary. So please do, Daryl. Continue.
Well, it was just more of a statement than, if this is a provincial legislation, is there, I guess, room for our comments if there's a housing crisis provincially?
That's what they're asking for feedback. Or as if we're going to influence it, that is doubtful, unless I think the statements in support of the keeping the agricultural, the direction that the Ag Commission has suggested, and we've put into bylaw that tries to preserve agricultural land. The group last night stated that, you know, they want that recognized, they want it left unchanged, and I don't think we know where that might go. You know, I think there are trying to create more housing opportunities throughout the province, and they're looking for feedback through this document as to whether that's supported or not. Last night it was a clear statement that they support the direction that But when it comes to ag, they want it, they want it to remain as is, as far as the designation presently.
But I would say too, like, we've got to put, if anything, put the town and stuff to densify in town, like, you know, there again, I mean, this stupid bunker that's been there like half our lifetime, why can't, there should be a 6-story condominium or something on that spot, and there's other places here too, that that's where the population residents should go. And, you know, that's a big one in my case, but, you know, we need other places besides that too, but.
So to clarify, from the Ag Commission's perspective, there was some disagreement with this, or is it protecting what you wanted to protect?
Basically emphasizing the protection that we already have there, that they don't undo it.
Okay,
with what they
yeah,
want.
so this doesn't mess anything up.
I don't think it's suggested a change to.
No, I'm saying basically it's just making sure that what we just did 2 years ago is left alone and not undone. Because, like I say, otherwise you start, you know, adding double houses or residences all across our valley on all these lots, we're done.
Which this doesn't do.
It's not
No,
supposed to.
No, it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Okay.
it's, well, in the ag zones, because Sadie went through this and she's looked through all of the ag zones, and because she did the CVAC meeting, and she said it's unchanged. The density permissible in terms of this area that's gone through that ag policy review, it's unchanged. Because in other areas of the RD, they are permitted secondary,
Well,
yeah,
that's the thing, like.
where they haven't gone through that.
The bylaws that we did 2
Review.
years ago are specific to areas
Mhm.
B and C.
Yeah,
And not the rest of the regional district, like specific to here. And it's like, we just didn't want it to get lost or undone by other areas that just to emphasize that stays.
Good. Anybody else have any questions about it? Roger, do you have?
Problem is that I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Isn't it true though that, yes, so a residence within, the agricultural properties in Area B, can be no larger than 3,000 square feet. It must have 2 separate living units in it.
If it is larger
For
than
new
3.
construction. They seem to be saying that any new construction needs to accommodate 2 separate living units.
See, like, if this goes, yeah, it's just, well, then that's where that secondary suite within.
Inside of the house.
Inside the house,
Yeah.
as opposed to another separate building and all of those.
They can't build a 5,000 square foot one because to accommodate that separate unit, they gotta do
It's
it
still,
within
if you're gonna do it, it's gonna still fit in there, yeah. Like I say, our size limits were put on specifically too, so you don't have these monster houses like they got down at the coast and so on, and all of those with that.
Now, my question would be, what about areas within Area B that appear not to be supporting the ag industry? Lots of Erickson, where you live, Lon, and that side of the highway, there seems to be closer, more density. Would there be accommodations within ag land in Area B that would not conform?
Not really sure on that. I'd say a lot of that, for the smaller lot ones, it'd be what, ag 1, right? That's the smaller.
Well, where I am in Erickson, actually, R1 or R2. I'm in the agricultural land reserve, but I'm not zoned by the regional district to stay. I'm residential. I'm on 0.8 of an acre.
So yeah, I guess there's some that, I don't know if they fit this way, that way, or I'm not the expert on all of those things. And then there's stuff that's been done in the past that, for whatever reason, went, and we can't undo them. and you're just trying to keep it from getting worse, is what this was.
I'll make another quick comment. I've found with, as you, I'll use your latest example, Roger, you're required to have, 2 residences within that house. You build it, you have 2 residences, your parent dies or your kids move on or your family. Anyway, there's one living in it. It reminds me of when you're allowed to put second residences in Erickson's on the orchards. They rented to the farm workers for the first year, and then it was all hell breaks loose and rent to anybody you want. And it was intended to have farm laborers or your family in there. But it's almost impossible to control. Because the bylaw officer come and knock on your door and they look at your ID, oh yeah, you're related to the landowner, you'd stay. But it takes, I think, or a complaint from a neighbor, an official written complaint, and then it may become an investigation. So it's difficult to enforce, I'm gonna say, when you nitpick about coming into somebody's house.
Right.
Oh, there's no more secondary suite here. What are we gonna do? So, difficulty enforcement. Anybody else have any other comments? The before us is we would make a recommendation here. So resolve and we recommend it to the board. Are we ready to take a vote on this? Is there any other comments that anybody wants to make to this, Carol?
Well, I guess I'm a little bit unclear. I've heard kind of 2 theories on what this actually means. When I read through this, when it came in, it seemed to me that all zones, all land classifications within our district and other districts are now being enabled to have either a suite legal in an existing structure, or if it's above 1 hectare, a second structure, residential occupancy dwelling unit, call it what you will. That was what I took from reading it. I'm picking up a little bit that maybe it's now if somebody chooses to build a new home, say there's nothing existing on a parcel of land and they build a new home, that they're actually required to have a basement suite built in. I didn't gather that from the document.
I think it's just you're given that option. There's more flexibility.
It's
there's
enabling a higher density.
If you want to
Right.
build, if you're over 1 hectare and you have your house, and
Yeah.
you want to build that carriage house, now there's flexibility
Right,
for that.
okay.
And in the commercial zones, because you were saying because in the commercial zones, that suite, I think it was just the modernization of the language, the caretaker suite.
Yeah, there's caretaker suite, heavy industrial.
I
as an
believe
example, medium
already,
industrial.
I'm not sure about area B, but in some of the other electoral areas, they already had that accommodation for a unit of housing in a commercial building.
Right.
And I believe it was just a modernization of language where now it's called a caretaker suite.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think the intention there is someone who's sort of taking care of the building and
Yeah. Well, I'm tracking correctly then in my mind in that this is enabling more density, not requiring it. Now, to speak to your point, Randy, when I look at new additions, not revised wording in this document, this bylaw amendment referral form that was sent out, that was like the 100 pages of bathroom reading. If you look at Ag 1, if you look at Ag 2, if you look at any of these Ag zones, there's actually new reference in here to the maximum density is 2 dwelling units, not including a farm worker dwelling unit. Whereas in the existing zoning, it doesn't say anything about development regulations. So it seems to be, to your point, saying we're going to authorize carriage houses along with all of the other zones.
I believe it's just,
If it's over 1 hectare.
but I think in those ag zones, it's just it's saying now you could put a suite in your house. You can have that two units. So existing single family dwelling. So area B, Ag 1, existing is single family dwelling, and then you can have a secondary suite. And now the wording is the maximum is 2 dwelling units, not including a farm worker dwelling unit.
So if we go back to the cover page here, it kind of hinges, in my understanding, on the 1 hectare below or 1 hectare above. So if which most ag parcels would be above 1 hectare, which would suggest, in just a cursory reading of this document, that we're saying any ag land can have a carriage home. I'm
Yeah,
not trying to
yeah.
belabor this, it's
Let me
pretty
just look
fundamental
up
if
the
we're gonna make that
definition
motion.
of,
That we understand it.
Yeah, last meeting, the way Sadie was saying that, or Sadie or Gary, that carriage houses still were not included. And then basically it was the basement suite or secondary suite, with 1 house only. That was the only stipulation there, not extra, in an extra building like a carriage house.
Yeah, so if we're going to have a recommendation and we're gonna vote on that, I think it's important that we understand what we're actually referring to. Because in my reading, it was kind of sounding like anything over a hectare, we can build another separate unit.
well, and I think because the interpretation for dwelling unit means 1 or more rooms with self-contained eating, living, sanitary facilities intended to be used as a residence, for no more than 1 household, where in a contrast to an accessory dwelling, which is a separate, I'll find accessory. So I believe you're correct, Randy. And is that what Sadie said last night with so you could have the 2 dwelling units, the house with a additional dwelling unit, but not necessarily an accessory, what do they call it now in the new bylaw? Detached accessory dwelling.
There was a lot to
In those
digest.
ag zones.
It
But
might,
I can also ask Sadie,
I
or
think
sorry, Dana, who wrote and then send out an email to
it actually may state it here. It's a lot to read and kind of come semi-prepared here, but it does say residential zones with lot sizes 1 hectare. Residential zones with lot sizes over. So maybe this ag thing is a separate kind of sideline.
yeah, because it is more restrictive in the ag zones in this ABC area. But yeah, in the residential zones, then you can have the 1 hectare or greater house with the carriage house. Whereas,
Chair, maybe we could ask for that clarification from Dana then, as you say,
yeah.
stipulate it to.
Okay,
So clarification on that, on the changes in the ag zone with dwelling units. Is it a house with a suite, or would you be permitted? Okay.
Specifically a carriage house, there's lots of people
Is there
still
one point
doing
it
that.
talks, at one point it talks about the duplex being above and below, like it's very specific. It doesn't say side by side, it's like on top. So I was thinking, okay, when the ag, that would make sense that if you're having density, you go up, then at least you're not taking land. So but I didn't read that anywhere else. So maybe if we had a motion where we didn't comment on the ag part, because we don't know enough about it, or is there some confusion? We could split it into 2.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
well, I'll just quickly read what what's before us is, we support or not support the RDCK bylaw amendments as outlined in the referral package. Differential built 44 housing units. Daryl, is there anything specific other than the ag concerns that you had? And Laura, is Daryl right? This is largely an enabling bylaw as opposed to a requirement bylaw. It enables
Yeah,
more density
it's just giving
also.
options you're not forced, if you want to build a house, you're not forced to come in and put a suite in it.
Yeah.
But and honestly, the changes aren't huge because we are the rural area. There's not the servicing. So what Dana told me is, there is some flexibility in those 1 hectare or larger parcels in the residential zones. There's a bit more flexibility. And other than that, the RD was already meeting the minimum requirements. It's different than the municipalities where you're near a transit hub and you have sewage. So, because we did have a lot of questions from the public about what changes are coming, am I gonna, be able to put a fourplex on my property? And really, Dana was saying, most of the zones already allow this suite. So, yeah, and I'm not sure about the ag zone. Sadie was saying it, there weren't no changes to existing density.
That's sort of what they're saying, and what we stipulated was just basically, like they say, an extra bit thrown in there just to emphasize that we don't have that assurance that our bylaws
Yeah.
sticking, and then we weren't gonna. Right.
Yeah.
Just sort of make sure, like,
And I
don't
can put,
forget about this counts.
Okay.
Right? One thing, a different comment I would make is too, if we allow this build or whatever you want to call it, application to go, then it opens up for everybody that's on residential properties and so on. Well, maybe where you're situated, and you like your space, and you got your space, it's nice. Maybe the guys beside you don't care so much. Next thing, you got twice as many neighbors on either side. Then it comes back to water and stuff like that, which everybody knows there's issues there. You start having a full pile of residences all over the neighborhood. Where's the water coming from? You're gonna put in the new lines and so on to make it work, right? And on and on, just with the rest of the infrastructure. So just because federal government is intent on bringing in 1 million new people a year, it's like, doesn't mean we want them here.
Okay, so I think where we're at is what I'd like to do. I'd like to call a vote. I suspect we're not going to support it. This isn't binding. It's just some direction for Roger. I think Roger understands that we have some concerns from the agricultural perspective, and Roger's going to get those. Because if we delay and get that information, folks, we're not going to make a recommendation in time for Roger to do anything. So I think if we don't support it, Roger knows that we're not supporting it as it reads. We want it to ensure the protection that exists for agricultural purposes. But rather than support it, if we support it, then we're not supporting the agricultural side.
If you're good enough, like I say, what I was going to suggest is if they would go along with it to sort of do what we did, where if you're in favor of it in general to allow for more housing density, and yet help us support the ag side of it with what we did last night, that's an option too.
And who wrote that motion for you?
Again, what you're saying is that we agree except for the ag portion where we recommend that there's enhanced clarity, more clarity, whatever, something like that.
Laura, can you draft something like that?
So,
Yeah, say
Does someone want to-
you come up with the words last night.
okay, so
You're very close, Karen. I think we're
So something along the lines of the APHC supports the bylaw amendment changes in regards to the residential zones, but would like seeks further clarity on the changes to the ag zones.
nice and short and sweet. Is that wording sufficient to everybody?
Is everyone fine with the residential
Yeah.
zones? Yeah.
Okay, that's nice and short, Laura. I think you've got
Okay.
the gist. I'm going to say all in favor.
Motion and second.
Sorry. Well, there's the motion that Laura read out.
So I'll make a
Okay.
motion because
I'm sorry. That's right.
ball rolling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't we just let Laura time to write it?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that the Area B Planning and Heritage Commission support the RDCK bylaw amendments in regards to, I can reword it later too, in regards to the residential zone, changes to the residential zones.
I think that could almost be left unsaid and just stipulate perhaps agriculture. There's a lot more than residential.
Support, yeah, that's true. So you're the commercial.
Start by saying.
So everything
Except for.
except for
Except
support
for
the,
agriculture,
yeah.
comma, then we're generally support.
But do not support the
But
ag,
if you put except for ag,
sure,
then it's,
except for the amendments to the agricultural zones. Without further clarity on the changes.
because if you put except for, and then that we accept, I'm just gonna really short and sweet paraphrase.
Yeah.
And then the next sentence would say, to clarify with regards to agricultural, the group
Okay, yeah,
is suggesting, requesting, or would like.
okay, that's good. So the group requests further clarity on the amendments to the ag zones.
Requesting additional clarity to confirm that there are no, how would you say it, no additional changes, like, are you happy with what's in place and we're just wanting
Yeah,
to
to,
stress that
that
there
it
should,
stays.
that it stays?
Okay. So the group like clarity that changes are not occurring to density in the ag zones.
That sounds good.
That's pretty close.
The changes are not increasing density.
Maybe just clarity on clarity.
Agricultural zoning, changed.
Just clarity. Okay, the group would like clarity on the changes to the agricultural zoning.
It's not necessarily a bad thing that there's higher density. It may actually enable some agricultural activities to be better supported. It's just maybe more how it's done.
Okay. That it's resolved to be recommended to the board that the area B APHC support the RDCK bylaw amendments to implement the requirements of Provincial Bill 44 Housing Statutes Amendment Act, except for the amendments to the agricultural zones. The group would like clarity on the changes, the proposed changes to the agricultural zone.
Karen,
Yeah, that sounds.
close?
Okay.
And remember, this is informing our statement to Roger. We're not talking.
It'd be more fun if Roger wasn't here, and we all came up with this grand idea and then presented it to Roger. It is better this way.
But it's not like it's a response to the province or
No,
something like that.
yeah, we're not gonna sit and wait for them to.
We don't
answer
have.
first. Okay, we have a motion before us. Thank you, Laura. All from Karen, and we have a seconder. Did we? Can we extract a second out of this motion? Good.
Seconded.
Thank you, John. All in favor? Okay. Anybody online that has anything to say? You're too late. We have a majority. Okay.
And there might be questions from the public.
Okay. Yeah, public time. We're on to agenda item number 6. Public time? None? Next meeting, May 28th? Good. Okay, sound like
Chair, I'd like to just take a minute to say that we've had a resignation from the group, and Miriam Chatwin got a hold of me, and it was her sister who died in the vehicle accident in Kitchener, and the kids that are left behind, she's looking after them, and the father gonna take a long time to recover. So, yeah, maybe we can just take a moment to, a minute of silence for those who lost their lives there and to recognize Miriam's part of that. So, yeah, let's just take a minute to think about that and the impacts it had on her and that family.
Thank you for that, Roger. Okay, I'd motion to adjourn. Adam? Thank you. Meeting's adjourned at 7:44. But we're at
You did good.
33.
You did good.
One item. A little easier.
Thanks, Lon.
Thanks, guys.
Hey.
Excellent.
Okay, we'll